They said no one could stop time. But one woman did. And when she did, the world finally learned to sleep. In the little coastal town of Doran, where fog rolled in every evening and the ocean breathed against the cliffs like a living thing, there stood a clock shop older than anyone could remember. Its windows glowed faintly even past midnight, spilling soft golden light into the misty streets. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oil and wood polish. Hundreds of clocks, tall and small, jeweled and plain, filled the shelves and walls. They ticked together in gentle harmony, a lullaby of time itself. Tick-tock, tick-tock. At the center of it all sat Elias, the old clockmaker. His hands, wrinkled yet steady, moved with practiced grace as he adjusted the tiny gears of a brass pocket watch. He worked by lamplight, his eyes half closed in calm concentration. Outside, the sea murmured. The fog pressed softly against the glass. Elias paused and leaned back, listening to the rhythm that had been his companion for more than 40 years. Every tick seemed like a heartbeat, comforting, constant, alive. He smiled faintly. As long as the clocks still sing, he whispered, the world keeps breathing. But that night something changed. It began with a single sound, or rather, the absence of one. One clock, the oldest in the shop, stopped. His pendulum froze mid-swing. Elias looked up, surprised. Then, one by one, the others followed. The rhythm faltered. Tick. Nothing. A silence spread through the room, vast and strange. The kind of silence that swallows your breath and bends the air. He stood slowly, staring at the frozen faces of the clocks. The second hands hung motionless. The hour hands glimmered faintly in the lamplight, as if holding their breath. He glanced at his own pocket watch, the one he never let out of reach. Its cover was engraved with a single name, Lydia. 2 had stopped. Mid-tick. Outside, even the ocean had gone still. The waves stood frozen, silver and silent beneath the unmoving moon. Elias pressed a hand against the windowpane. The world beyond it shimmered faintly, as if wrapped in glass. He whispered, "What have you done, time?" And then he heard it. A whisper in the stillness, soft and far away, like a voice carried on a forgotten wind. "Find the heart of time, Elias, before morning comes." The whisper faded, leaving only silence behind. Elias stood motionless, his pulse echoing loud in the quiet. The lantern beside him flickered once, as if it too were uncertain whether to burn or not. Then the pocket watch in his palm gave a single soft beat. A heartbeat. Thump. He looked down, and saw light pulsing gently beneath the glass, like something alive. Elias took a deep breath. He reached for his coat, his hat, and his walking stick. And as he stepped out into the frozen street, the world around him shimmered like crystal. Above, the stars hung motionless. Below, his footsteps made no sound. But the watch in his hand ticked once more, softly, like a heart that refused to stop dreaming. Elias stepped outside into the cold silver stillness. The air was unmoving. Even the fog hung suspended, like a painting of mist. The moonlight bathed the cobblestones in ghostly light, and the sound of his boots made no echo. He looked up. The clock tower that crowned the town square stood frozen at 12:03. The great brass bell above it hung mid-swing, its clapper caught forever before the strike. Even the birds perched on its ledges were still, feathers caught mid-rustle, wings half open. It was as if the whole world had forgotten how to move. Elias turned the small pocket watch in his hand. Its glass cover pulsed faintly, casting a warm golden glow against his coat sleeve. With each pulse came a faint sound. Tick, tock, tick, tock, the only heartbeat left in the world. He began to walk toward the square, guided by its light. His breath formed no mist. His shadow did not follow. As he passed the bakery, he saw loaves of bread half risen in the oven. In the tavern window, laughter hung frozen in the air. A man mid-toast, his glass forever suspended. The world was a still life painting of moments caught between heartbeats. Elias stopped beneath the tower. The door that led to the clock's inner stairs was locked, just as it always had been. But tonight, beside it, there was another door. It was small, no taller than his shoulder, and made of dark wood that shimmered faintly, as though carved from shadow. He had never seen it before, yet it looked old, older than the tower itself. The watch in his hand pulsed faster. Tick, tock, tick, tock. He reached out, his fingers trembling slightly. The wood was warm beneath his touch, almost alive. Find the heart of time. The whisper from before echoed faintly in his mind. Elias took a breath, turned the handle, and the world rippled. For a moment, he felt as if the ground dissolved beneath his feet. The silence deepened, turning almost liquid. The air shimmered around him, and the golden pulse from his watch spread outward in waves. When the rippling stopped, the door stood open. Inside was a staircase, spiraling downward, made of glass and light. It seemed to stretch endlessly into the depths below, glowing faintly with the color of moonlit water. Elias hesitated only a moment. Then, clutching the watch, he began to descend. Each step echoed not in sound, but in feeling, a soft vibration in his chest, like the beat of an ancient heart. As he went deeper, the frozen world above faded away, and a soft hum began to rise from below. It was the sound of time, still alive, still waiting. And as Elias stepped into the unknown, the faintest whisper reached him again. Not all clocks count hours, some count hearts. He kept walking, down into the light, down toward the heart of time. The staircase ended in silence. Elias stepped onto a smooth marble floor that shimmered like water. All around him stretched a vast hall, endless, glowing with soft blue light. It wasn't empty. Floating through the air were tiny golden motes, each one pulsing faintly, like the beat of a small heart. He moved closer and realized they were seconds, little pieces of time, lost and forgotten, hovering in eternal stillness. When he reached out, one drifted toward him. Within it, he saw a fleeting image, a little girl laughing, blowing dandelions in a summer field. Then it flickered, dimmed, and disappeared. Elias whispered, "A memory." The pocket watch in his palm vibrated gently, its heartbeat syncing with the glowing seconds. He looked around, thousands, millions of them, floating like fireflies in the dark, moments too small to be remembered by the world above. He began to walk through them slowly, reverently. As he passed, each second stirred slightly, lighting his path. Far ahead, he saw something moving, a shimmer of shape amid the glow. A figure, tall and cloaked in silver mist, standing beside a colossal pendulum that hung in midair. It swung slowly, cutting through time itself. Elias felt a tremor of awe. He approached, and the figure turned. Its face was calm and ancient, eyes deep as midnight. "You should not be here," the figure said, voice echoing like a bell underwater. "I had no choice," Elias replied softly. "Time has stopped. The clocks above are silent." The figure tilted its head. "All clocks are but mirrors of the heart. When the heart falters, time follows." Elias frowned. "Then tell me, how do I mend it?" The figure studied him for a long while. Then it extended a hand. From the folds of its robe, it drew a small hourglass, its sand frozen mid-descent. "This is a second unspent," the figure said. "A gift you gave once, but forgot." Elias took it carefully. Inside the glass, the single grain of sand pulsed faintly with light. "What does it mean?" he asked. "It means," said the figure, "that time is not lost, only waiting. But to awaken it, you must remember what you left behind." Before Elias could speak again, the pendulum gave a slow, thunderous swing. The air rippled. The hall began to shift, the golden seconds swirling faster, drawn toward the light at its center. The figure's voice faded, but its last words lingered. "Seek the moment between, the place where memory and dream touch. Only there can time breathe again." Then everything blurred. The light, the hall, the seconds, and Elias felt himself pulled upward, weightless, through the shining current of forgotten time. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer in the hall. He stood in a meadow, beneath a sky that shimmered between night and day, the stars faint but the sun just below the horizon. The watch in his hand glowed steadily now, its ticking strong. He whispered, "The moment between," and in the distance he saw it. A door standing alone in the meadow, gleaming with gold and shadow, waiting for him to remember. The meadow was vast and glowing. Not quite night, not quite morning. The horizon shimmered, as though time itself hesitated between breaths. Elias stood still, his coat fluttering in the soft, unreal wind. The golden door gleamed ahead, impossibly out of place, standing alone in the middle of swaying grass. Its surface rippled gently, like light reflected on water. He took a cautious step forward. The closer he came, the more he felt it. A hum beneath his skin, faint but steady, like a heartbeat echoing through the earth. The pocket watch in his hand ticked in rhythm with it, guiding him closer. He reached out and brushed his fingertips against the door. Warm, alive. A whisper rose from the grass, soft as sleep. Every dream unfinished becomes a world waiting to be remembered. The door creaked open, spilling golden light across the meadow. Elias hesitated, then stepped through. On the other side, the world was familiar, and that was what frightened him most. He stood in a small workshop lit by a single lamp. Tools on the bench, clocks half repaired, the air thick with the scent of brass and dust. It was his shop, but years younger. He looked at his hands, unwrinkled, steady. The air shimmered faintly, as if painted by memory. Then he heard it, a soft laugh from behind him. He turned. There she was, Lydia. Her hair caught the lamplight. Her eyes glowed with the warmth of 1,000 remembered evenings. She smiled the way she used to, as if every second in the world was something to treasure. Elias felt his chest tighten. Lydia? She stepped closer, the dreamlight flickering around her. You stayed too long in the ticking, Eli, she said gently. Always mending time, but never living it. He swallowed hard. You're gone. Her hand brushed his cheek, warm, real. Gone? No, just waiting where you stopped remembering. The pocket watch glowed brighter between them, the name Lydia shining on its cover. Pulsed once, tick, then again tock. Elias whispered. Time stopped because I couldn't let go. Lydia smiled sadly. You stopped because you thought time had to be perfect. She leaned closer, her voice a soft breath. But perfection is where time dies, Eli. Love is where it lives. The light around her began to fade, scattering into golden motes like the forgotten seconds from before. He reached out, but his hand passed through her. The workshop trembled. The walls cracked into light, and Lydia's fading whisper lingered as everything dissolved. Remember, my love, to mend time, you must forgive it. Elias gasped, finding himself back in the meadow, kneeling before the golden door. Now silent, dark and still. The watch in his hand ticked normally again, soft but sure. He whispered into the wind, I remember. Then, far away across the meadow, another light shimmered, pale blue, moving slowly through the grass like a lantern. He rose, steadying himself. Whatever waited next, he knew it was leading him deeper into the heart of time, and himself. He began to walk. Elias followed the pale blue light through the meadow. It drifted ahead of him like a firefly, weaving gently between blades of silver grass. The world around him pulsed with a calm rhythm, a breath between worlds. He felt no cold, no warmth, only stillness. His footsteps left no mark, yet the ground seemed to remember everyone. After a while, the light paused. The mist parted, and there, standing in the half-glow, was a figure holding a lantern. The lantern keeper. She was tall, wrapped in robes that shimmered like moonlit silk. Her face was kind but unreadable, her eyes reflecting countless stars, as though she carried the night sky within them. The lantern she held was not like any Elias had seen. Inside its glass, the light didn't burn. It flowed, rippling like water. You've come a long way, Clockmaker, she said softly. Her voice was the sound of wind through glass. Elias bowed his head slightly. I don't know how far I've come. I only know that everything stopped. The clocks, the sea, even the moon. The keeper nodded slowly. Time sleeps when hearts forget their rhythm. You've touched its dream, and now it remembers you. He frowned. Then tell me how to wake it. The lantern's glow rippled faintly, casting light across her calm face. To wake time, she said, you must walk through its 3 reflections: memory, choice, and surrender. Elias listened, the ticking of his pocket watch faint but steady. The keeper lifted her lantern higher. The first you've already begun, memory. You faced what you lost. You remembered love. She touched the air with her free hand, and a small shimmer appeared, an image of Lydia smiling in golden light. Elias felt tears prick at his eyes. The second, she continued, is choice. You must decide what to carry forward, and what to let go. He took a deep breath. And the third, her gaze softened, surrender. The moment when time no longer obeys you, but joins you. The meadow darkened slightly as if the stars above dimmed in respect. She handed him the lantern. Take this, Elias. It burns with your living seconds, the ones you have yet to spend. Guard it well, for if it dims, your path will end. Elias accepted it carefully. The light was warm in his hands, almost pulsing like a small heart. He looked up. Where must I go? The keeper pointed toward the horizon, where mist curled into a long, narrow path of shimmering stone. Follow the river of stillness, she said. It will take you to the house of choices. There, time will ask its question. Elias glanced at her one last time. Will I see you again? The keeper smiled faintly. You will at the end of the ticking. And with that, she lowered her hood. The wind stirred once, and when Elias blinked, she was gone. Only the faint blue light of the lantern remained, steady and alive. He looked toward the horizon, where the river of stillness waited, reflecting the stars that no longer moved. He whispered, memory, choice, surrender. Then he began walking, the light guiding his steps, the lone heartbeat in a sleeping world. The meadow faded behind him as Elias stepped onto the narrow path. Before him flowed a river, not of water, but of light. It shimmered silver blue, smooth as glass, and completely silent. It didn't ripple, didn't move, and yet, somehow it felt alive. The lantern in his hand glowed brighter as he approached. When he looked into the river, he didn't see his reflection, he saw moments. A child's laughter, a sunset over the cliffs, the ticking of a clock just before it was wound. Fragments of a life, his life, moving beneath the surface like soft currents of memory. He crouched beside the water, mesmerized. When he touched it with his fingers, the surface rippled once, and the world around him changed. He was standing in his old workshop again, years younger. Lydia leaned against the doorway, smiling. Eli, she said, you've been working all day. Come watch the sea before it gets dark. He smiled faintly. Just a few more minutes. This piece is delicate. She laughed. That bright, melodic sound he had missed for so long. Time will wait, you know, she teased. But he had not looked up. Elias blinked, and the river pulled him back. The meadow and mist returned, shimmering with soft light. He stared at the glowing water, guilt blooming quietly in his chest. Time did wait, he whispered. But she didn't. The lantern in his hand dimmed for a heartbeat. Then, from far away, a voice, calm, familiar, drifted across the river. Do you see now, Elias? Time isn't lost. It's lived or left behind. He looked around, but saw no one. The voice faded, carried by the unmoving breeze. Ahead, the river stretched endlessly toward a faint glow, a shape in the mist that looked like a bridge of silver arches. The house of choices, perhaps. He rose and began walking along the riverbank. As he went, the light beneath the surface showed him other paths. Moments he had never lived. A version of himself who had closed the shop early to walk with Lydia by the sea. Another where he had taken an apprentice. Another where he had never opened the clock shop at all. Every step revealed a possibility, each one glittering and vanishing as soon as he tried to focus. He stopped finally, overwhelmed. The ticking of the watch grew louder in his hand. echoing in his ears like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. Then, from the river rose a shape, a reflection pulling itself free of the surface. It was Elias, another version of him, eyes bright and calm. "Who are you?" Elias asked softly. The reflection smiled faintly. "I'm the man you could have been, the one who chose differently." The two stood in silence for a long moment. The reflection spoke again, voice soft but certain. "Every clock you built measured time for others, but you forgot to measure your own. Time doesn't serve you, Elias. You serve it through how you live." Elias felt something shift inside, a gentle crack in the wall he had built around regret. He looked at the river again. The reflections no longer hurt to see. They glowed beautiful even in their loss. The lantern in his hand brightened, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He took a deep breath and whispered, "Then let me walk forward, not back." The reflection nodded once and stepped backward into the river. The surface rippled, and the path ahead began to glow, leading toward the silver bridge. Elias took his first step onto it. The river's soft hum rose around him, cradling him in its rhythm. Not a ticking, but a breathing, a pulse of peace. When he reached the other side, the air shimmered gold. A grand house stood waiting, built of mirrored glass and gentle light. Its doors stood open, and beyond them, shadows of countless ticking clocks filled the silence. The house of choices. Elias tightened his grip on the lantern and whispered, "Memory remembered. Choice ahead." Then, with a steady breath, he stepped inside. The glowing river led Elias to a place where the land folded in on itself. A slope of silver grass that curved upward into the sky, ending in a house that shimmered like a reflection seen through tears. The house of choices. It stood tall and endless, built from glass and brass and ticking gears. Every wall gleamed with reflections of different skies, some bright, some storm-torn, some painted with sunsets that never ended. Elias approached carefully. The lantern in his hand flickered, its light bending and splitting into multiple beams as though uncertain which reality to follow. When he reached the door, he saw that it had no handle, only a mirror set into the wood. And in that mirror, not one reflection but many. Each showed a version of him, older, younger, joyful, bitter, wise, afraid. Some worked tirelessly in their shops. Some sat beside Lydia, smiling quietly. Some walked alone beneath the same moon, listening to clocks that never ticked. He lifted a trembling hand to the mirror. The reflections moved as one. Then the surface rippled, and a voice, calm, deep, familiar, spoke from beyond. "You've mended time for others all your life, Elias. Now mend it for yourself." The mirror brightened until it became a doorway of light. He stepped through. Inside, the air shimmered like heat. The house of choices stretched endlessly. Corridors of mirrors and doors, each pulsing faintly with life. Every door bore a symbol, a clock face frozen at different hours. He opened the first. Inside, he saw himself 20 years ago, the night Lydia asked him to stop working just for one evening. He watched himself refuse gently, promising tomorrow. The door closed. He opened another. A version of him stood before an empty bed, whispering apologies to the silence. He closed it too, his hand shaking slightly. Finally, at the end of the corridor, he saw a single door glowing softly blue, the same color as the lantern keeper's light. No clock on it this time, only the shape of a heart. The voice returned, "Each door is a moment you built or broke. But this one, this is the one you never lived." Elias hesitated, clutching the pocket watch to his chest. Its ticking was strong now, almost human. He whispered, "What happens if I open it?" "Then you choose the rhythm of time itself." He took a breath, long, slow, steady, then opened the door. Light spilled out, warm and gold. He stepped inside and found himself standing in a version of his shop he'd never seen. The clocks ticked softly, but they didn't dominate the air. The shelves were lined not just with gears and metal, but small trinkets, seashells, sketches, half-finished music boxes. And there she was, Lydia, sitting at the workbench, smiling. Elias froze. "Is this?" She turned toward him. "It's what could have been." she said gently. But it's also what can still be. She reached out, brushing her fingers along the ticking pocket watch in his hand. Pulsed in response. The heart of time isn't in clocks, Elias, she whispered. It's in how you choose to spend it. The golden light grew brighter, wrapping them both. The shop dissolved into warmth and sound, every clock chiming at once, not in chaos, but in harmony. Elias closed his eyes, and in that moment he understood. Time had never been broken. He had simply forgotten how to listen. When he opened his eyes again, the house was gone. The river of stillness flowed freely now, stars drifting along its current like tiny lanterns. The sky moved again. The world breathed. He stood alone but peaceful. The pocket watch in his hand ticked softly. Alive. He smiled faintly. Then let time flow, he said. I'm ready to walk with it. And somewhere far off, the lantern keeper's voice whispered, fading like dawn mist. You've chosen well, Clockmaker. The second reflection awaits. The river wound down into a wide valley, where the air shimmered like glass. Elias followed the soft path of light, the lantern's blue glow steady in his hand. The stars above drifted slowly again, their reflections rippling across the gentle current beside him. He could feel it. Time was waking, not rushing, but stirring softly, like a child stretching from sleep. The valley was silent, but not empty. Each breath carried whispers, faint, overlapping, like countless voices speaking at once. When he listened closer, he realized they weren't voices. They were choices, every decision ever made, echoing through the valley like ripples of sound. Some were small, a word unsaid, a letter never sent. Others were vast, a life turned, a love lost, a war begun. He closed his eyes. The whispers brushed against his thoughts. Stay a little longer. Turn back now. Tell her you love her. Don't wait for tomorrow. Each echo stirred something inside him. Fragments of lives he could have lived. Elias whispered, "This is the sound of the world deciding." He walked deeper into the valley, where the air thickened with golden mist. Shapes began to appear, silhouettes made of light, repeating their moments over and over. A woman standing at a crossroad, a child holding a broken toy, a soldier lowering his weapon, each one frozen between yes and no. He approached one, a figure that looked like himself, standing before Lydia's door with flowers in hand. But this version of him turned away instead of knocking. The moment froze, shimmering. Elias reached out, his hand brushing the echo's shoulder. The scene rippled, and he felt the ache of that decision like a wave through his chest. Then he heard the voice of the lantern keeper again, soft and near. Every choice creates its own hour, every hour its own world. Do not regret them. Listen to them. He stood still, letting the echoes wash through him. The lantern's light pulsed with each beat, syncing with the countless rhythms around him. And slowly he began to understand. The valley wasn't punishment. It was reminder that time's beauty wasn't in its perfection, but in its imperfections, in how every choice, even the wrong ones, built the melody of existence. He whispered, "Each second I lived was a note in the same song." The valley brightened. The echoes softened into harmony. Millions of choices, blending together into a peaceful hum. Then, from deep within the mist, a single chime rang clear, pure, eternal. It came from a tall stone arch at the valley's far end, carved with clockwork patterns that glowed like dawn. The voice returned, now closer. "You've heard the echoes, Elias. Now walk through them. The third reflection awaits. Surrender." He nodded slowly, holding the lantern close. The air shimmered gold as he stepped forward through the archway, the sound of 1,000 ticking hearts fading behind him. As he crossed the threshold, the light dimmed, and the air grew soft as sleep. No sound, no ticking, only peace. He looked ahead and saw nothing but horizonless white, a space without beginning or end. He took a breath and whispered to himself, "So this is where time stops to rest." Elias stepped into the white. It wasn't light, not exactly, more like the absence of shadow. The air had no sound, no scent, no edge. Every step felt weightless, as if he walked inside a held breath. He glanced down. His boots left no mark. The lantern in his hand glowed softly, its blue light pulsing like a heartbeat, trying to remember its rhythm. Far ahead, the whiteness shifted. Shapes appeared. Faint outlines, hundreds of them, motionless and glowing. He walked closer. They were hearts. Not beating, but suspended, each encased in glass, floating gently in the endless field. Some were dim. Some glimmered faintly. Each one ticked once for every life that had stopped moving when time itself fell asleep. Elias whispered, "The hearts of the world." The lantern keeper's voice returned, soft and near, though he could not see her. Every clock stops when its heart forgets why it began. This is where all sleeping moments rest. He knelt beside one heart, small and golden, flickering faintly within its glass cocoon. When he touched it, a wave of memory flooded him. Laughter, rain, a child's hand in his, the smell of sawdust in sunlight. He saw Lydia's face again, smiling, waiting. Tears warmed his eyes. He whispered, "They all waited for me." "They still are," the voice said gently. "But to wake them, you must release what binds them, including yourself." Elias frowned softly. "Release myself?" "Yes, the final reflection is not about control. It is about trust. You must let time go, and let it choose its own path." He looked at the lantern, its glow flickering faster now, as if struggling. The flame inside trembled, reflected in the glass hearts all around him. He realized then, the light in the lantern wasn't just his. It was everyone's. Every second he'd carried, every memory he'd protected, every moment he'd refused to let fade. If he held it forever, time would never flow again. It would remain here, still, perfect, and lifeless. He stood slowly, trembling slightly. "I've spent my life trying to fix time," he whispered. "But all it ever needed was to be free." The keeper's voice was tender now. "Then free it, Clockmaker. Free it, and yourself." Elias lifted the lantern high. Its blue glow brightened, spilling color into the whiteness. Soft gold, deep violet, pale dawn pink. The hearts around him began to shimmer, stirring faintly as if remembering how to beat. He opened the lantern's glass door. For a moment, the flame inside hesitated. A single perfect second. Then it rose gently into the air, drifting upward like a sigh. The hearts began to beat, slowly, then faster. Thump, thump. The sound spread like ripples through the void, growing louder, fuller, until the silence shattered into life. Light surged through the field, and Elias felt his body dissolve into warmth. The world spun. He heard clocks chiming, oceans roaring, birds crying. All at once, as time reawakened around him, and as the light carried him upward, he heard Lydia's voice one last time, soft as a heartbeat. "Time isn't something you keep, my love. It's something you live." He smiled through the tears, and let go. When the light faded, he stood once more in his workshop. The morning sun poured through the window. The clocks ticked in harmony, alive again. Outside, waves crashed against the cliffs, and the world moved. Steady, beautiful, imperfect. Elias exhaled slowly, smiling at the sound of each tick. The pocket watch on his table glowed faintly. Its cover was still engraved with Lydia, and this time, it ticked softly, perfectly in rhythm with his heart. He whispered, "Thank you." And for the first time in a lifetime, the clockmaker rested, not because time had stopped, but because it had finally begun again. Elias opened his eyes. For a moment, he wasn't sure if he was awake or still dreaming. The morning light poured through the window in golden ribbons, painting his workshop in soft warmth. The smell of salt and brass filled the air. And most importantly, the clocks were ticking, not in chaos, not out of sync, but together. Hundreds of clocks, each one with its own rhythm, yet somehow a harmonizing. He sat up slowly in his chair, every muscle aching like he had lived 1,000 lifetimes. On his table, the pocket watch lay open, ticking steadily, its hands glowing faintly. Elias smiled faintly. "You're awake too." He stood and walked to the window. The village below shimmered with morning dew. Smoke curled gently from chimneys. Children's laughter echoed faintly through the cobbled streets. The world had begun to move again. As he watched, he noticed something strange. The air shimmered lightly, like sunlight passing through water. Everywhere he looked, small moments sparkled. A woman hugging her child a little tighter, a fisherman pausing to look at the sky in wonder, a dog running with new energy as if tasting life again. Time hadn't just resumed, it had remembered how to feel. He walked outside, his old boots crunching softly on the damp path. Neighbors greeted him with sleepy smiles. "Good morning, Elias," they said, one after another, voices warm, eyes bright. He realized they all felt it too, the gentle rhythm beneath the day, as if the world itself was breathing in harmony. At the town's edge, he found the old sundial, cracked and moss-covered. He brushed it gently. The shadow of the dial pointed perfectly east. Its first true morning in what felt like forever. He whispered, "You waited for me, didn't you?" Behind him, a familiar voice spoke. "We all did." Elias turned and saw her. Lydia. She stood just beyond the sunlight, her figure soft but clear, her smile calm and knowing. Her presence was light. Not ghostly, not dreamlike, but whole. "You kept the light alive," she said, walking closer. "And now it burns in everything that moves." Elias blinked back tears. "But I thought you were gone." She smiled, touching his hand. "Not gone, just resting, like time itself." We both woke together. They stood there quietly, feeling the morning wash over them. For a long while, there were no words, only the sound of waves and ticking clocks echoing from his workshop. Finally, Lydia said, "You gave the world back its heartbeat. But what about yours?" He looked at her hand in his. For the first time in decades, he felt warmth, real warmth, pulsing beneath his skin. He laughed softly, the sound fragile but pure. "I think it's learning to keep its own time again." She smiled, her form beginning to shimmer like mist in sunlight. "Then my work here is done. I'm part of the ticking now, Elias, every second, every dawn. You'll hear me in the clocks." He nodded slowly. "And I'll keep listening." Her light grew brighter, and with one last smile, she faded into the sunlight. The air was quiet again, but not empty. The rhythm of her heartbeat lingered in every sound, every tick, every wave. Elias closed his eyes. He whispered, "Goodbye, my love." Then he returned to his workshop, set down his tools, and began crafting once more, not to fix time, but to honor it. Each clock he made that day was softer, lighter, tuned to the rhythm of living things. He called them heart clocks. They didn't just tell time, they felt it. That night, as the stars rose, Elias sat by his window again. The sea shimmered, and the moon hung low, a perfect, slow pendulum in the sky. He looked at the glowing pocket watch beside him, smiled, and finally whispered the words he'd long forgotten. "I'm ready to rest." And as he closed his eyes, the world kept ticking. Steady, alive, eternal. Years passed like pages turning in silence. The little seaside village had changed. New houses, new voices, new light in the evenings. But one sound never left. The steady, tender ticking of Elias's clocks. Each home had one. Each shop, each boat, even the school on the hill. And every clock, no matter how small or grand, beat to the same soft rhythm. A rhythm born from one man's heart. They called them heart clocks, though no one truly remembered why. Some said the clockmaker who made them was touched by the stars. Others whispered that the clocks didn't just keep time. They carried hope. One evening, in that same workshop by the sea, a girl named Mira pressed her ear to the wall of ticking. She was 12, curious, bright-eyed, the apprentice of a man long gone, though she'd never met him. Her grandmother owned the old clock shop now, and on quiet nights, Mira swore she could still hear the faint hum of something magical in the gears. "Grandmother," she asked, "who built the first clock here?" The old woman smiled, eyes misty with memory. His name was Elias. They called him the Clockmaker of the heart. He gave the world back its time. Mira frowned softly. How can someone give time back? The woman chuckled. By remembering it was never his to own. She handed Mira an old pocket watch, its metal warm and worn smooth by touch. On its face, the hands moved slowly, not quite matching the others in the shop. Why is this one slower? Mira asked. Because it's waiting, her grandmother said. For what? For someone who understands it. Mira turned it over. There, engraved faintly in silver, were two words, "Live kindly." Something about those words made her chest ache with quiet wonder. That night, after her grandmother had gone to bed, Mira sat at the old wooden table where Elias once worked. She lit a small lamp, opened the back of the watch and peeked inside. The gears were simple, old but alive. And at the center, impossibly small, was a shard of glass glowing faintly blue. The light of the lantern, she whispered, not knowing how she knew. As she watched, the light pulsed. Once, twice, like a heartbeat. Then she heard it. A voice, faint, gentle, carried through the ticking air. Every heart keeps its own time, little one. Listen closely. Mira froze, wide-eyed. Who's there? Just a clockmaker, who never stopped listening. The sound faded into the ticking around her, and for a moment she thought she imagined it. But when she held the pocket watch close, she felt warmth. And beneath the ticking, a whisper of something alive. She smiled softly. I'll finish what you started, she whispered. By dawn, the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon, gilding the sea in gold. In the workshop window, the clocks gleamed, alive once more. The world outside began its morning. Ships leaving the harbor, birds tracing circles above the waves. And from that day on, the village never truly slept. Because somewhere in every home, a clock ticked with the rhythm of care, reminding people to live gently, to forgive often, and to treasure each passing second. Mira became known as the child of time. Her clocks traveled far beyond the village, to cities, kingdoms, and finally across oceans. Each one carried a sliver of Elias's gift. The reminder that time isn't measured in hours, but in moments that matter. That night, as Mira rested in her little attic above the shop, she dreamed. And in her dream, she saw an old man smiling by the sea, his lantern glowing faintly blue. He nodded once, then turned, walking into the horizon, where the stars waited to keep time forever. Mira had never seen so many lights. They stretched into the sky like stars brought down to earth, towers of glass and steel gleaming against the dark. The air trembled with motion, footsteps, laughter, engines, bells, and the constant rhythm of time spent but never felt. She stood at the city's edge, the pocket watch glowing softly in her palm. Its blue light flickered faintly, as if uncertain in this place of restless speed. She whispered, "Steady now. We'll find the heart of it." The city was called Lunaris, a place famous for never sleeping. Shops stayed open through the night, trains ran at every hour, and people measured their worth by how much time they could use before dawn. Billboards flashed, "Stopwatch, make every second count." Why rest when you can rise? Mira walked through streets buzzing with energy, but the faces she passed were pale, hollow-eyed, and hurried. Even laughter here sounded tired. She stopped before a massive clock tower in the city square, taller than any building she'd ever seen. Its hands spun faster than normal, ticking wildly, gears grinding with strain. A boy selling newspapers nearby shouted, "Clock tower's been going mad for days. City officials can't slow it down." Mira looked up at it, feeling the vibration of its racing heart beneath her feet. She whispered, "It's lost its rhythm." That night, she climbed the tower. The stairs were endless, spiraling through dust and shadow. At the top, the great gears turned furiously, glowing red with heat, sparks flying. Each movement was too fast, too desperate. Mira set down her satchel, opened the old pocket watch, and placed it gently on the metal floor. The blue light spilled out, casting calm shadows on the walls. She closed her eyes and breathed slowly, matching her breath to the soft ticking. Then she spoke, not loudly, but with purpose. Time is not your master. It is your friend. The gears shuddered. Sparks dimmed. For a moment, the tower hesitated, as if listening. She continued. You've been running so fast, you've forgotten why you began. Breathe, and remember the first second, the one that mattered most. The blue glow from the watch pulsed brighter, spreading through the gears, cooling the red-hot metal. Outside, the tower's wild ticking slowed, then steadied. Down below, the entire city heard it. The first slow, peaceful chime they'd heard in years. People stopped. Trains paused. Children looked up from glowing windows. For a single, perfect moment, Lunaris held its breath. Then, a silence spread, deep and healing. The clock struck midnight. But instead of chaos, the sound was pure, gentle, like a lullaby sung to the world. Mira smiled faintly, leaning against the warm metal. The blue light faded back into the watch, calm once more. She whispered, "That's better." As she descended the tower, she saw something miraculous. The people of Lunaris slowing down. Shopkeepers closing their doors. Workers looking at the sky for the first time in years. Mothers holding children as the city dimmed its endless lights. And when morning came, the streets were quieter. Not empty, but alive. The city that once never slept was finally dreaming. Mira left before dawn, walking down the long road that led beyond the city gates. The air was cool. Her pocket watch ticked softly in her hand, glowing with quiet satisfaction. She looked back one last time. The tower stood still and proud, its clock face shining gold in the early light. "Sleep well, Lunaris," she whispered. "The world moves better when it learns to rest." That night, in another dream, Elias's voice returned, soft as ever, filled with pride. "You found the rhythm, Mira." "I just listened," she replied. "That's all I ever did," he said, laughing gently. And in that laughter, she heard the sound of the sea again, a reminder that no matter how far she traveled, the heart of time was always near. The moon hung low that night, bright enough to turn the world to glass. Mira walked along a field of silver mist, her satchel swinging softly at her side. The stars above seemed closer than usual, listening, waiting. Then she heard it, a low, distant hum, rising like thunder wrapped in silk. She turned. From the horizon, cutting through the fog, came a train, but not one made of metal or smoke. Its body shimmered like mercury, its windows filled with light that flickered like dreams. She whispered, "A train, but where could it be going?" As it neared, she saw its name carved faintly on the side, the Nocturne Express, for lost moments only. The train slowed, stopping right before her. The doors opened with a sigh, releasing a cool breeze scented with starlight. A conductor stepped out, tall, thin, wearing a coat stitched from midnight itself. His eyes glowed faintly blue. "Mira of the clocks," he said, bowing slightly. "Your ticket has been waiting." She blinked. "My ticket? I didn't buy one." He smiled. "Some journeys are invitations, not purchases." He handed her a piece of silver paper, blank, yet warm in her hand. As she looked closer, faint writing appeared. "To gather the dreams left behind." Without hesitation, she stepped aboard. Inside, the train was a cathedral of time. The walls shimmered with faint gears and constellations, and the air pulsed with the soft rhythm of sleeping hearts. Passengers filled the seats, not quite awake, not fully gone. Some were old, some were children, some looked like shadows of themselves. Each one held something, a letter never sent, a book half written, a toy left unfinished, a song unsung. Mira sat by a window, watching the stars race backward. The world outside flickered, fields, oceans, cities, not as they were, but as they might have been. She turned to the conductor. "Where are we going?" He smiled gently. "Nowhere new, everywhere forgotten." He pointed out the window as the train glided through a landscape of light, scenes unfolding like film, a painter putting down his brush before finishing a masterpiece. A child growing up before learning to say goodbye. A lover choosing silence over truth. Each image shone briefly, then dissolved into mist. These are the lost seconds, the conductor said. The pieces of time people left behind when they rushed ahead. Mira's heart ached as she watched them vanish. Can they ever be returned? Not as they were, but they can be remembered. That's all time asks. She opened her satchel and took out Elias's pocket watch. Its blue light reflected in the glass, glowing brighter with every forgotten moment the train passed. The light began to spread through the carriage, gentle at first, then warm, wrapping every passenger in its glow. One by one, the sleepers stirred. A man smiled softly as he clutched the letter in his hand. A young girl began to hum the song she'd never finished. An old woman whispered, "I forgive you," into the air. Mira watched with tears in her eyes as the lost dreams bloomed like stars along the walls. The conductor tipped his hat. "You've given them back what they lost. Not time, but peace." She nodded. Elias said peace was the truest clock. The train slowed again, pulling into a station that seemed to hang in the sky. A silver platform stretched into nothingness. The passengers stepped off, each walking into their own soft light, disappearing quietly. Mira followed the conductor to the door. He smiled kindly. The Nocturne Express always runs, but it only carries those who remember what matters. You've done well, little clockmaker. The train's doors closed behind her. As it glided away into the moonlight, she heard one final whistle, low, steady, eternal. Mira looked up. The stars seemed brighter now, twinkling in perfect rhythm. She whispered, "Good night, forgotten seconds," and began walking once more, guided by the faint ticking in her heart. The tide carried Mira farther than she'd ever gone. Days and nights blurred together, the horizon glowing pale blue, then deep violet, then gold again, until, at last, she saw it, an island that shimmered as if caught between two worlds. The sand glowed faintly silver. Trees swayed, but their leaves fell upward, returning to branches. Waves reached the shore, then retreated, reversing, reforming, refusing to end. Her boat touched the shore with a soft sigh. She stepped out, the cool sand pulling slightly at her feet, like time trying to remember how to move forward. She whispered, "The island of tomorrow." The words felt strange, like she'd said them before, long ago. At the center of the island stood a tall crystal obelisk, humming faintly. Its surface reflected the sky, the sea, and, most eerily, her. But not the Mira she knew. The reflection moved differently, faster, her hands busy with invisible work. Her eyes were sharp, restless, never still. The reflection smiled. "You finally caught up." Mira took a step back. "Who are you?" "I'm what you might have been if you'd never slowed down, if you'd kept fixing time instead of listening to it." The reflection's eyes gleamed, filled with cold brilliance. "I built clocks that never stopped. I made the world efficient, perfect, unbroken. And yet, no one slept, no one dreamed." Mira felt her chest tighten. "You forgot the heart. Hearts slow everything down." The reflection raised her hand, and the air shimmered. Scenes unfolded around them. Cities running on flawless rhythm, people smiling without rest, clocks ticking in absolute precision. But beneath the beauty was silence. No laughter, no breath, no soul. Mira shook her head. "This isn't tomorrow. It's a prison that looks like progress." Her reflection tilted her head. "Then show me your version." Mira reached into her satchel and took out the pocket watch. Its blue glow flickered softly against the silver sand. She opened it, and the faint heartbeat echoed across the beach. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The reflection winced, as though the sound pained her. "It's imperfect." Mira smiled gently. "Exactly." She held out the watch, and light spilled from it. Waves of memory, laughter, tears, sunsets, embraces. All the fragments that made time human. The reflection staggered back, the glow painting her face with color. Her cold precision melted into something tender, uncertain. "I remember this," the reflection whispered. The first clock, the first morning, the warmth. Mira stepped closer. Tomorrow doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be alive. For a long moment, the two stood there, mirror to mirror, still and silent. Then the reflection smiled faintly, eyes softening. Then live it well. She reached forward and touched Mira's hand. The island flared with light. Time reversed one final time. Waves folding into stillness, trees blooming backward, dawn unwinding into night. And when it settled again, Mira stood alone. The obelisk was gone. The sand was warm beneath her feet. In the distance, the horizon shimmered with a new light, the faint glow of a sunrise that hadn't yet happened, but soon would. She looked down at the pocket watch. His hands had stopped, not from failure but from peace. Mira smiled softly. Tomorrow can wait. That night, she built a fire and listened to the ocean's heartbeat. Each wave rolled in with a whisper. Tick-tock, tick-tock, a lullaby for the world learning, at last, to move gently again. Soft light broke through the night as Mira walked inland, away from the whispering waves. The air shimmered faintly, filled with drifting golden dust that smelled like memory. The ground beneath her feet glowed faintly blue, as though time itself had taken root in the soil. A gentle voice carried on the wind. Welcome, dream traveler, to the garden of forgotten hours. Mira turned. There was no one there, only a narrow path lined with luminous flowers. Each bloom pulsed faintly, and inside every petal, faint scenes played like reflections on glass. A mother laughing with her child. A boy skipping stones by a quiet river. An old man whispering a prayer at dawn. Moments, tiny, unremarkable, yet filled with a beauty too soft to last. She bent down to touch one of the glowing blossoms. The moment it brushed her fingertip, she was there. Standing beside that same river, the boy's laughter ringing like wind chimes. For a heartbeat, she lived the memory, felt the sunlight, smelled the rain on stone. And then, gently, the scene faded, the flower closing like an eyelid returning to rest. Every flower here, the voice said again, is a moment someone let go of. A figure emerged from the mist. A tall man in robes made of woven shadow and light. His hair was silver, his eyes like clear glass. I am the gardener of time, he said softly. I tend what is forgotten, so it may never truly die. Mira bowed slightly. Why do you keep them? He smiled, kneeling beside a bloom. Because time is not lost, it only changes shape. Every second someone cherishes is planted here. When they stop holding it, it grows. He plucked one petal and let it drift. It floated upward, not down, joining the air like a firefly fading into dawn. They walked together deeper into the garden. Some areas glowed bright with memories still close to the heart. Others were dim, the light faint, moments too long gone. Mira paused beside a patch of withered vines. Why do some fade? She asked. The gardener looked at her kindly. Because some people cannot forgive themselves enough to remember gently. Regret can strangle even the most beautiful hour. Mira felt the truth of that in her chest. She thought of her own mistakes, the clocks she'd broken, the people she'd left behind while chasing perfection. She whispered, then how do we heal them? The gardener extended his hand. By remembering them not as failures, but as lessons that shaped the rhythm of your heart. He guided her hand toward one dying flower. It was brown and brittle, its light faint. When she touched it, warmth flowed from her palm. Memories of laughter, apologies, forgiveness, and slowly, the flower began to glow again. The gardener smiled. You see, every hour deserves a second chance to bloom. They came to a tree at the garden's center, vast and ancient. Its trunk was carved with spiraling patterns, and from its branches hung glowing watches instead of fruit. Each one ticked softly, some fast, some slow, some almost silent. Mira gazed up in wonder. Are these all the hours of the world? No, the gardener said. Only the ones loved enough to be remembered. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Yours waits among them. She stepped closer, and there it was. A small watch, glowing faintly blue, the same shade as her pocket watch. She touched it, and warmth flooded through her. A montage of everything that had brought her here. The ticking grew steady again, a heartbeat reborn. The gardener smiled. When you leave this place, you will carry its peace. And wherever you go, every forgotten hour will bloom again inside you. Mira closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." "No," said the gardener softly, fading into mist. "Thank time for waiting for you to slow down enough to listen." As she left the garden, the sky turned a deep shade of violet. The stars above shimmered faintly, each one pulsing to the rhythm of 1,000 living moments, forgotten but never gone. Mira looked down at her watch, smiled, and whispered, "Every second matters, because it ends." And with that, she walked on, toward a horizon that glowed like dawn reborn. The morning mist hung low as Mira left the garden of forgotten hours. The air smelled of dew and starlight, and far ahead, a soft silver shimmer wound through the hills. It wasn't a road, it flowed. A river, glowing faintly like quicksilver. Its waters moved not forward, but backward, against gravity, against time itself. She approached its edge, the soft soil cool beneath her boots. The current whispered, not in waves, but in voices. "Remember, remember." Mira's hand trembled as she knelt beside it. Reflections rippled on its surface. Familiar faces, fleeting moments, the laughter of her mentor, the first clock she'd built, the last sunset she'd ignored. She whispered, "This is the river that remembers." As she gazed deeper, one reflection stopped her heart. A younger version of herself, eyes fierce, hands stained with ink and oil, standing before her workshop's great clock, the one she'd broken the night she tried to fix time. The air around her shimmered. The river's pull grew stronger, wrapping around her wrist like liquid silk, and before she could resist, it pulled her in. She fell through light, not cold, not painful, just endless, like being swallowed by memory. When she landed, she was standing inside her old workshop. Dust motes hung in the air. Gears turned slowly in the half-dark. The familiar ticking of clocks filled the room, a rhythm she hadn't heard in years. And there she was, her younger self, bent over the great clock, muttering softly, "It's not enough. Time slips, people suffer. I can fix it. I can stop it from breaking." Mira's chest tightened. She remembered this night too well. The night she tried to freeze time so no one would ever lose another moment, and ended up breaking it instead. She whispered, "Don't do it." But the younger version didn't hear. Her hands worked feverishly, tightening gears, forcing pieces that didn't fit. The clock groaned, its hands trembling. "Just a few more turns," the young Mira said. "Then time will be perfect." The older Mira stepped forward. "Perfection isn't peace," she said softly. "You're about to stop the world from breathing." This time, her younger self looked up, eyes wild, desperate. "You don't understand. People waste time, lose it, cry over it. I can fix that. I can make it fair." Mira shook her head. "And you'll kill the very thing that makes it beautiful, the way it moves." She reached out, touching her younger self's hand. For a heartbeat, both versions of her were connected. Past and present, pride and regret. "You can't protect the world from loss," she whispered. "You can only teach it how to heal." The younger Mira hesitated. Her hand trembled, and slowly, she let go of the wrench. The clock groaned again, its gears loosening, the tension unwinding. Then click. The great clock resumed its steady rhythm. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Not perfect, but alive. Light burst from the clock's face, spilling across the workshop. The river's current roared, pulling Mira backward through it, through memories, laughter, tears, until she surfaced once more on the riverbank, gasping softly. Her reflection in the water was different now. Softer, lighter, whole. She smiled faintly. Maybe time was never broken, just misunderstood. The river rippled in answer, its current slowing for a moment, as if nodding in approval. And then she noticed something new. A bridge of light forming over the river, leading toward the horizon where silver clouds glowed like dawn. She stood, pocket watch in hand, and whispered, "Let's see where the next memory flows." The water shimmered behind her as she stepped onto the bridge, the sound of ticking fading into the hum of wind and stars. Each step forward felt lighter, freer, as though she was finally walking with time, not against it. The silver bridge shimmered beneath Mira's feet, each plank a slice of starlight suspended over the river that remembers. Below, time itself flowed backward, its current whispering old songs. Above, the moon hung enormous and still, as if the sky were holding its breath. Mira walked slowly, her hand brushing the glowing railing. Each touch set off a ripple of light, illuminating constellations that had no names. Then she heard it, a soft, resonant voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You have walked far, Clockmaker." She paused, heart fluttering. The voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It was timeless. "Who are you?" she asked softly. "I am what you once tried to command, what you now choose to understand." Mira's breath caught. "You're time." The air shimmered gently, the moonlight pulsed, and out of it stepped a figure. It wasn't human, at least not entirely. Its body was made of flowing light and shadow, its eyes a swirl of endless stars. Each movement seemed both slow and instant, graceful beyond comprehension. Time smiled. "You have tried to fix me, to stop me, to outthink me. Now you walk with me. Tell me, Mira, what have you learned?" She looked down at the watch in her hand. Its ticking was faint but steady, warm against her palm. "I learned that time isn't something to master," she said quietly. "It's something to listen to live with, not over." "And yet," time said, stepping closer, "so many still fight me. They cling, they rush, they waste, they mourn. Why do you think that is?" Mira hesitated. "Because time reminds us that everything ends." Time's eyes softened. "And endings frighten those who have not learned to begin again." The bridge creaked gently beneath them as the wind carried faint chimes, like the sound of clocks breathing. "So tell me," time said, "what would you do if you could change 1 hour?" Mira closed her eyes. Images flickered, her mentor smiling through exhaustion, her reflection of perfection, the garden of forgotten hours. She shook her head. "I wouldn't change any," she said. "Even the painful ones taught me something. Without them, I'd still be chasing silence instead of peace." Time regarded her for a long, quiet moment. Then, a faint smile curved their lips. "Then you have learned the rhythm of the universe." The bridge beneath her feet began to glow brighter, turning transparent. Through it, she could see the river below, thousands of memories drifting past like constellations underwater. Each one pulsed once, then faded gently, returning to the current. "You have one journey left," time said softly. "To return to the beginning, where the first heartbeat of the world still echoes." "The beginning?" Mira whispered. "Yes, the source of time. Few ever find it. Fewer still understand it." The moonlight brightened, and suddenly the far end of the bridge came into view. A towering gateway made of spiraling silver sand, glowing faintly like dawn frozen in midair. "Cross through," time said, their voice fading. "But remember, every ending is only a new measure in the song." Mira looked down one last time. The river glowed like a silver mirror, showing her face, her past, her path. She smiled softly. Then she stepped forward and crossed into the light. The world around her dissolved. The ticking stopped, the wind stilled, and for the first time since her journey began, everything was silent. Not empty, but full. Light surrounded Mira like a living ocean. It pulsed softly, breathing with her heartbeat, glowing in waves that carried neither heat nor shadow, just infinite calm. She stood at the edge of something vast and wordless. The air shimmered as if the stars themselves were dust motes adrift in eternity. Then she heard it, a sound beyond music, a low, endless hum that resonated through bone and soul alike. It was the rhythm of everything, the pulse of existence. Mira whispered, awe filling her voice. "This is the source. Before her rose an enormous clock, but unlike any she had ever seen. Its gears were made of galaxies, spinning slowly in golden arcs. Its pendulum was a comet, swinging through space with each heartbeat of creation. Every tick sent ripples through the cosmos, birthing stars, seasons, and the delicate rise and fall of time itself. She stepped closer. Each movement echoed with faint whispers. Laughter, cries, the flutter of wings, the sound of rain on rooftops. Every moment that ever existed sang softly here. And yet, beneath all that sound, there was peace. You finally found me. The voice came not from behind her, but from everywhere at once. Mira turned slowly and saw a figure standing beside the cosmic clock. It was herself, but not young, nor old, not bound by flesh or shadow. This Mira glowed with starlight, her form fluid and endless. Her eyes shimmered like twin galaxies, and her smile carried the stillness of infinity. "Who are you?" Mira whispered. "I am the part of you that never began and will never end," the figure said gently. "The you that existed before the first tick." Mira's throat tightened. "The eternal me. The timeless you," the reflection corrected softly. "You thought time was a river flowing outside you, but it has always flowed through you." The great clock shuddered, sending ripples through the stars. Fragments of memories, her life, her mistakes, her joy, rose into the air like glowing feathers. Mira watched them drift upward, forming constellations of everything she'd lived. Every life, the timeless Mira said, is a fragment of this great design. Every tear, every smile, every second you feared was wasted, was a note in the grand song of time. She raised her hand, and the stars began to swirl, forming images Mira recognized. Her mentor's hands guiding hers, the garden blooming again, the river flowing backward, then forward at peace. The clocks she built, not as cages for time, but as gifts to help people cherish it. Mira felt tears in her eyes. "I broke the clock once. I thought I had ruined everything." The other her smiled faintly. "You didn't break it. You reminded it that even time must rest to renew." Mira laughed softly through her tears. "The source doesn't need to be fixed, does it?" "No. It only needs to be remembered." She felt warmth bloom in her chest, soft and golden, spreading through her like sunlight at dawn. Her pocket watch vibrated faintly in her hand, its ticking aligning perfectly with the great clock's rhythm. For the first time, they moved as one. The cosmic pendulum swung. The galaxies turned. And Mira understood. Time was not her enemy, nor her creation, nor her burden. It was her reflection, and she was its keeper. "It's time to go back," said the timeless voice. "The world needs your hands again, not to control, but to guide." Mira nodded slowly, placing her watch on her heart. The golden light expanded, wrapping her in warmth. "Will I remember this?" she asked. "Only as a feeling," the voice whispered. "Peace, wonder, gratitude." The stars began to dissolve one by one. The great clock faded into pure light, its ticking softening until it became a heartbeat again, hers. And with one final breath of cosmic air, Mira stepped forward and vanished into dawn. She awoke in her workshop. Morning sunlight spilled through the window, catching in the glass of her clocks. Each one ticked gently, imperfectly, beautifully. Mira smiled, touching her watch. It glowed faintly blue, alive, steady, content. She whispered, "Thank you for the time we've shared." Then she turned to her bench, not to fix, but to create. A new clock, one that sang softly with the rhythm of the heart. The morning sun poured into Mira's workshop, soft and golden. Dust danced in the light, swirling lazily as though even the air had learned to slow down. Every clock on her walls ticked differently. Some fast, some slow, some skipping a beat, but they all sang in gentle harmony, like 1,000 tiny hearts whispering now, now, now. Mira sat at her old wooden workbench, her tools laid out before her. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel the rush to begin. She simply breathed, listening to the rhythm of life outside her window. Birdsong. Children laughing in the square. The low hum of the marketplace beginning its day. Each sound was a measure in the symphony of time. She reached into her satchel and pulled out the pocket watch. Its face was cracked, but its glow was steady. She placed it gently on the bench and whispered, "You and I have traveled far, old friend. Let's build something the world can feel." Then she began. This time she didn't draw blueprints or measure gears. She built by instinct, letting her hands move to the rhythm in her heart. The base was carved from driftwood she'd once found by the shore of the river that remembers. The pendulum was forged from silver dust gathered in the garden of forgotten hours. And the glass face, it shimmered faintly, as if holding the reflection of the stars she'd seen in the source of time. At the center, she set the heart. The pocket watch still ticking, still alive. Days passed, or perhaps minutes. Time felt softer here. As she worked, people began visiting her workshop. They didn't come for repairs anymore. They came to sit, to listen, to breathe. An old man who'd lost his wife. A young girl afraid of growing up. A mother who wished she could pause her child's laughter forever. Mira would smile and tell them, "You can't hold a moment still, but you can hold it close." And when they left, each carried a small clock she made by hand. Not perfect, not identical. Each one ticked differently, tuned to its owner's heartbeat. Finally, one quiet evening, the final clock was complete. It stood taller than her, the wood warm to the touch. Inside, the light from the pocket watch pulsed softly, glowing through the gears like a heartbeat of starlight. But when she wound it, it didn't tick. Instead, it sang. A soft, melodic hum, low and endless. Not marking seconds, but telling stories. When you listened closely, you could hear laughter, footsteps, ocean waves, the sigh of wind across old mountains, the faint whisper of a mother saying goodnight. Every sound ever born of time's embrace. Mira stepped back, eyes glistening. "It's not a clock," she murmured. "It's a memory of living." She placed her hand over it, feeling the warmth beneath her palm. "No more counting moments," she whispered, "only feeling them." As night fell, people gathered outside her shop, drawn by the strange, comforting hum. They stood silently, listening. And for a brief, miraculous while, the whole village breathed in the same rhythm, hearts beating together. Time not as a chain, but as a song. Mira sat by the window, watching the stars reflect in the glass of the final clock. Her pocket watch, now part of it, glowed one last time, then stilled completely. It didn't stop. It rested, and Mira smiled. Even time deserves to dream. She closed her eyes, the hum lulling her gently towards sleep. Outside, the world moved on. Not faster, not slower, but right on time. The final clock stood silent at the heart of the village. It no longer ticked. It breathed. Every sunrise, its glass shimmered faintly with golden light. Every night, it pulsed like a sleeping heart. The air around it was softer, gentler, as if time itself had laid its head down beside humanity and closed its eyes. People didn't rush anymore. The streets once filled with clamor now carried laughter, music, and slow, thoughtful steps. Merchants took pauses between customers just to feel the breeze. Children stared at clouds instead of chasing minutes. No one could explain it, but everyone felt it. The world had learned to rest. Mira sat on her porch, watching dusk settle over the rooftops. The sky was painted in colors she'd never seen before. Lavender melting into rose, silver fading into blue. She felt no urgency, no ache, only fullness, the kind of peace that hums when everything has found its place. She ran her fingers across the old wood of her porch, the lines warm and worn. Every grain seemed to whisper a story. "You've done your part," said a soft voice. Mira turned. It was time, not in light or shadow, but in the shape of the evening breeze moving through her garden. "I never controlled you," she said quietly. "You never needed to," time replied. "You only needed to listen." The wind brushed her cheek, gentle, like a hand in farewell. "Will you rest now?" it asked. Mira smiled faintly. "I think I already am." She walked into her workshop one last time. The clocks on the walls ticked softly, each with its own uneven rhythm, beautiful in their imperfection. At the center stood the final clock, glowing with steady calm. She placed her hand on it and whispered, "You've done well." The hum deepened for a moment, then softened again, like a deep breath before sleep. Mira sat down beside it, her pocket watch still against her heart. Outside, the stars began to appear. Slowly, one by one, patient and eternal. She thought of everything she'd seen. The garden of forgotten hours, the river that remembers, the bridge of moonlight, the source of time. Every lesson, every step, every heartbeat had led here, to stillness, to gratitude, to rest. Her eyelids grew heavy. The hum of the final clock began to fade into her heartbeat. "When time sleeps," she murmured, "the world dreams." And with that, she closed her eyes. Morning came softly. The villagers found Mira seated by the clock, her face peaceful, her hands resting in her lap. She looked not gone, but complete. Around her, the air shimmered faintly, filled with golden dust that rose gently toward the sky. The final clock glowed brighter than ever before. Then, for the first time, it stopped humming and began ticking. Each sound echoed through the village like a heartbeat of the earth itself. Tick-tock, a new beginning. That night, as the villagers slept, they dreamed. Not of worries or lost hours, but of Mira walking across a field of stars. Her hair flowing like light, her hands tracing the paths of constellations. And somewhere far above, beyond the veil of dawn, time whispered her name like a lullaby. "Rest well, Clockmaker. You have taught the world how to dream again."